Historic Preservation Division, we have a contract with them to support our local governments that have preservation ordinances, commissions, and especially those that are certified local governments like the city of Grantville. And to say something about back in 1988 when I read this ordinance was put into place in 88, the local districts were put into place because you cared about the character and the quality of your community. And I think that not every community has that. I think it's a great asset that you have an HPC and you have people that are passionate about preservation in your community. I think that's very important. It's really those communities that thrive more than others. And I would say, I sense the hostility with different people and the different factions in the city, and I think there's room for compromise. In correspondence with Sarah Rogers with the Department of Natural Resources Historical Preservation Division, we both had a discussion. We think there's room for some compromise, especially when it comes to the city's design guidelines. These HPCs, they're all local based, and there's no higher huge, magic scenario for every community. Each community has their own, situations, their own desires, and I think that can come through with an update of the design guidelines, and possibly you definitely need a new survey done, because I think their last one was done in the mid-90s. But I think through those updates and through those endeavors, you can probably meet somewhere in the middle and both be happy. So I think there's hope, for all factions in Grantville for the positive growth of the community. And I'm definitely here. I'm just up the road in Franklin. That's where my office is. If there's any additional questions, when it comes to any future decision making. I do think it would be a good idea that any kind of changes to districts or proposals really should come from City Council or the HPC itself. And move from there. It's a pretty lengthy process. We have communities in our region that are actually expanding districts, not taking away from the district. So I think taking away from a district is quite an outlier when it comes to preservation commissions in Georgia, especially. People are actually adding to their districts because they see the benefit in them. And of course, I'm not here to bring any kind of magic or anything like that, because every community is different. But I think you've got a great asset in having the HPC and having historic districts, and I think you need to utilize those for the positive benefit of Grantville, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
I'm kind of new at this, but Scott Perkins, I live over on Powood Drive, 31 Powood Drive. I'm new to the HPC Commission, and I do not know what I'm doing, so y'all kind of, wave me off or whatever. I hate Mr. Sales left. I had, a few questions for him and a few comments for him. I wasn't going to stand up here and sling mud. I don't think we'll ever achieve anything worthwhile calling names. I truly thought what he said and did was very disrespectful, and I almost stood up, but y'all probably would have called 911. It's just not right for a man to speak to a lady like that. I don't care what. I just thought his comments was real disrespectful. I don't want to talk about him. He's not here. I wanted to say it to his face. Some of these issues that he mentioned, I truly believe fall under code enforcement. So the shingle, the falling off roofs, windows broken out, stuff like that. It's not a street department kind of thing. And I'm not putting down our meeting, which is great. I love this, but usually code enforcement will ride around if they see a piece of property kind of in disarray or, been sitting, they usually will issue some kind of warning or something. Hey, you need to pick up all your beer cans in the front yard or something like that, or we're going to fine you. And that kind of falls under that, I feel like. But, the last meeting we had, I was trying to talk with Jim. There goes my first meeting. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying to get in the groove and talk to everybody and see, if Miss Cody, she's, I think she's a good lady. I don't know her real well. She's a stickler for the rules, and I got no problem with that. I feel like, sometimes you have to take issues case by case, I guess. There's no two cars the same. There's no two people the same. One of the things Jim mentioned was, he wasn't going to be allowed to build the same size house that was on the lot because under previous rules and regulations, the lot would be too small. And, and I was inquiring, couldn't that, be, talked about, and next thing I know, he's climbing the podium like a wild animal or something, let me get off that, I'm sorry. In other words, it's hard to help somebody, in that condition. But, there's people living in that village. I mean, to this day, they probably had relatives that lived there back then. Most of them are proud to say that's their home. They care about their home. They cut the grass. They take minimum care of it. It's not their home, but they're not going to put new granite tops in there. It's not their home, if they rent. But most people care about what their place looks like, so it's not all the houses aren't, I don't think that bad, but I kind of feel like that may fall under code enforcement again, maybe take a trip through there, and I don't know if you see something hanging out of window that ain't supposed to be hanging out of window, if they're using the toilet in the front yard, it might need to be addressed. Yeah, the village can be cleaned up in that sense is all I'm trying to say, all the other cities do it, and we just got a new code enforcement officer and she seems real nice, trying to get into the swing of things, taking a lot of classes right now, trying to learn how to do her job properly. Really think she's going to work out. She's putting a good effort into it, maybe something needs to be discussed with her. I don't want to get real long-winded. I just, I've been living here 33 years and I love Grantville. Ain't nobody but God and IRS gonna get me out of here. I'm here for the long run. I built me a ramp. I'm ready, but, it, in some sense, change is good. There's no reason why, you can't get in the 21st century, or whatever century it is now. And upgrade, fix things, but the homes still can be repaired and new homes can be built to mimic the architecture of the historical homes that are there. And you don't have to break the bank to do it. You don't. It's going to have to be a thing of give and take. Do you want an empty lot full of kudzu that's never going to get cut by the way and raise snakes and rats? Or do you want to fudge a little and compromise some and let Jim build a house on that lot that would have the appearance, or would not take away at least from the appearance of the surrounding historic homes? I've done a little research. I hadn't had time, I worked so much, but he mentioned taking some of the doors off. Some of the houses had 2 front doors. Well, so does mine. I like it. I can sneak out this front door, my wife's coming in that one, and we don't even have to argue about it. But, you can leave the door, then build a wall inside and sheetrock right over it, and you never know there's a door there from the inside, but it still has the appearance of the old historical duplex home, it's kind of an easy fix for that. Anybody can figure that out. But, I just feel like, I had enough to do. I didn't need to join a club or something to take up more of my time. My wife said I'm on the phone too much anyhow, but I just sort of felt the need to maybe jump in and put my 2 cents into this for a minute. We don't get much done when we're calling each other names and saying this and that, let's agree to disagree, and shake hands and live to battle another day, I don't know why we can't work together. I quit coming to council meetings years ago. My uncle used to, it'd be in the Union paper every week, and my uncle would call it the funny papers. Sometimes the police would have to escort people out of here, and that was almost every week. It was embarrassing, it was pitiful, it was shameful, and it shouldn't have happened. And I quit coming to the council meetings, and I should have never done that. I should have stuck with it and put my 2 cents worth in every week. You know, I love Grantville. I mean, sometimes it might not look like a whole lot to a lot of people, but you know, it's home. There's a lot of people love Grantville as well. You know, sometimes you've been here for years and years and years. I mean, you gotta love Grantville, or you wouldn't still be here, and you wouldn't be up here doing what you're doing. You know, I'd love for Grantville to grow. I don't want it to be, you know, Atlanta. You know, I mean, we don't need Marta. Anything like that, but you know, I would like it to grow a little, you know, and have some reason for people to say, hey, I'm gonna buy a house in Grantville. You know, that's where your revenue comes from. You know, people buying homes, paying taxes, and you just hardly ever hear anybody say, hey, I can't wait to move to Grantville. I don't, you know, I can't put my finger on it, but we need to change that. You know, we need to make this town sort of a place where, like me, I don't care what happens, I'm still proud to tell somebody I live in Grantville. I always will be. You know, say what you will. You know, I mean, I live here. There's just a couple other things. I don't want to keep, you know, taking up your time, but, you know, I believe change is good sometimes. You know, I mean, I'm not talking about tearing the Mill Village house down with historical, you know, reference and putting up one of those 1970 Peachtree City houses with the funky steep roof and all that on it. I mean, it just won't fit. But there are a lot of building materials out there that are comparable to what the old houses have on them. Now, mind you, you couldn't afford to put clapboard siding on a brand new house today and build it affordably, you know, and for a rental house. The last time I checked, that stuff was about $6 a foot. You know, so there's got to be alternative materials that can be used, and okay, you know. Yeah, I'm more than happy to meet with people with issues in the middle, you know, and listen to their side of the story, and then find out, you know, before I start running my mouth too much, if I know what I'm talking about, you know, I mean, and find if it's even legal to do, you know, anything like that. But, you know, I just, you know, I don't know what the benefits would be to taking the Mill Village off the historical list, other than to a person that owns most of it.
You're talking to Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't know what the benefits would be to taking the Mill Village off the historical register, unless it, but for one person that owns half of it or whatever, you know, he would be able to build, you know, a little different home, maybe cheaper or whatever. I mean, I don't know. If it's in a historical district, it really should stay in a historical district. You know, our history is disappearing every day. Good, bad, or ugly. There's bad history, there's good history, there's history you ain't even heard about yet. But it's history, you know, and we learn about the future by our history because we learn by our mistakes. And when it draws blood and costs money, you remember it, believe me. So, you know, I'm against, you know, taking anything. You know, I don't think I got much more here. I just jotted a few notes. I wasn't very prepared, but you know, I just feel like the mudslinging is bad. It's disrespectful to every single person in this room. You know, we just need to mind ourselves and act like adults. You know, when we're in here speaking and stuff. That's my opinion. You know. But I appreciate y'all letting me speak, and maybe y'all let me come to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Do we have anyone else? Mrs. Ooh, my word. Mrs. Berry. I am so sorry.
Chairperson Hines and Committee Member King. My name is Dee Latimer Berry, 2 Post Street, and I was a few minutes late to the meeting, and I was just kind of confused as why this particular topic was being heard by the Streets and Public Works Committee, but maybe it's already been heard by the HPC and the Planning Commission. I don't know, or whether that's going to be next on the agenda to hear it from the committees that actually deal with the zoning issues.
This meeting today was just to get citizen input on the historical district overlay for the city of Grantville. Just for citizens to come in and express their concerns.
Okay.
And it was agreed upon to do this at a work session.
Okay, I don't know how much research has been done. Does anybody know the number of houses that are involved? How many houses, how many properties are within the historic district? Do we have that access to that kind of information?
Well, according to a source that said, someone said to me that we have a map, and I believe our city manager may be able to attest to this, historical overlay map that outlines the buildings and houses that's all involved in the historical overlay. Are you aware of that? They said it was on display, but when the building was painted, it was taken down.
I am not aware of all the properties in the historic district.
Okay, well, I thought it would be interesting to know how many houses we're talking about. How many of them are owner occupied or tenant occupied?
Well, really and truly, Mr. Sales stated before he left that he was withdrawing his request. So I don't
Okay,
know
well,
where this is.
that seems to me would be some good information if the city council is interested in the historic district and the possibility of shrinking it. It would seem logical to have that information in hand, and also to get the input of the property owners in that district. I know when my property was rezoned, I wasn't even notified, and that was to me, it was very frustrating to find out after the fact. But I think it would be a good idea to notify every property owner in the historic district. Maybe send out a questionnaire and ask them how they feel about being in the district. Do they feel that they should stay in the district? The city council is considering shrinking the district and want their input. Send them a letter and send them an envelope so they can send it back to you and let you know how they feel. I feel that we could shrink the district because there are properties in there that aren't historic, that are not historic. For whatever reason, maybe they've been remodeled, so now they don't even look historic. Maybe they started out being historic, but nobody noticed them changing it. So now they're not. So there are some circumstances that might warrant them being extracted from the district. But that would be information that would be very helpful for the city council to know how the property owner in that particular property, how they feel. And it's possible that you could refigure the district. It maybe would only involve maybe 1 or 2 or 3 properties, but then it would be more, the people in it would buy into what you're trying to do because they see the importance of it. The mill village should not be extracted. I feel I would be opposed to that because the mill village is connected to the old mill. And if the city at some point is able to acquire that property, that has value. Those two would be connected. And if you revitalize the old mill, you got the mill village, and that's a value, historical value. And to have the recommendation of the HPC, the recommendation of the Planning Commission, to have those 2 entities, maybe have a meeting of the City Council, HPC, and Planning, and talk about it if you're really serious about doing it. And maybe a consultant from 3 Rivers, if you can't afford to hire a consultant to deal with the historic district, give a recommendation from a professional. Maybe you could get 3 Rivers to give you a written recommendation, but just to, discuss it a few minutes and then vote and do it, that's too rapid of a process for something that's very important to the life of the city, the vitality and the future of the city. And that's all I would like to say.
May I just interject something here?
Sure.
This is the purpose of the meeting, where to get the citizen to come out and voice their concerns. Their thoughts on.
I don't know how are they notified. I don't know, there's 2 people here. There's gotta be quite a few houses over there in that district, so I don't know, did they get a letter? You know, or was it just,
Was it on the webpage?
a legal notice? Some people don't even, you know, don't feel real comfortable with the website, but to actually send out a written invitation or written notice to every property owner, addressed to the property owner, to me would seem to be the best way to go with this, and not rely on social media. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Anyone
Ms. Hines,
else?
may I respond to Ms. Berry?
Yes, we love feedback.
She had some very good and valid points. So when I said that it would be a good idea to do a new survey, because your survey was done in the 90s, and they recommend every 10 to 15 years to update your surveys. A survey would identify many of those properties that probably don't contribute to the district anymore, Ms. Berry. So that would be updated in a survey process. So if you maintain the district, but you update the survey, you can identify those properties that probably don't contribute to the district anymore. They've either lost integrity, by too many alterations of some sort, and those can be downgraded to non-contributing buildings, still being part of the district and have to go through the COA process, but the requirements for any changes to those buildings would be lessened than a building that would retain its historic integrity. And if the HBC, via the council, did decide to go along with a district shrinking or of any sort, the whole process of doing that involves a notification of all the property owners in that district. So and since that district covers, I think, the National Register district, which is almost the entire city, every person almost in the city would have to be